The Cleavers were known as the perfect family, but behind the cheerful world of Leave It to Beaver were secrets, heartbreak, and surprising moments that no one saw coming. The show might have looked like the ideal picture of suburban life, but the truth behind it was far from perfect. What audiences saw was laughter and love, but off camera there were challenges, creative fights, and moments that changed television forever. Here are some fascinating and little-known details about the show that reveal what was really happening behind the scenes. One of the most special things about Leave It to Beaver was how the audience got to see the characters grow up in real time. When the series started in 1957, Jerry Mathers, who played Beaver, was only 9 years old. Tony Dow, who played his older brother Wally, was 12. Over 6 seasons, viewers didn't just watch stories, they watched 2 real kids grow into teenagers. Their voices changed, their faces matured, and their mannerisms evolved naturally, just like real life. This gave the show an honest and relatable feeling that few others had. By the time the series ended in 1963, Beaver was a teenager and Wally was preparing to go to college. The Cleaver family seemed real because the changes the audience saw weren't scripted, they were genuine. That's what made the show so memorable. One of the most surprising moments in TV history came from something as ordinary as a toilet. In one early episode, Beaver and Wally ordered a baby alligator through the mail, but when they couldn't handle it, they tried hiding it in the toilet. This scene sparked outrage among television censors at the time. In the 1950s, it was considered improper to show a bathroom on television, let alone a toilet. The producers argued that the story wasn't about the toilet but about the boys' funny attempt to hide their new pet. Even so, the controversy delayed the episode's release, and it ended up airing a week later than planned. To satisfy the censors, only the top of the toilet tank was shown, not the bowl. This small but bold decision made Leave It to Beaver one of the first shows ever to show part of a bathroom on TV. What started as an innocent scene with a baby alligator ended up changing what was acceptable on television forever. Beaver's name itself has an interesting story. For years, fans wondered how Theodore Cleaver got the nickname Beaver. It sounded unusual and a little funny for a small-town boy. Jerry Mathers explained that the name came from one of the show's creators, Joe Connolly, who served in the Merchant Marine during World War II. Connolly had a shipmate nicknamed Beaver. No one knew how that man got his nickname, but it stuck with Connolly, and when he started developing the show years later, he decided to use it for the character. It was simple, easy to remember, and fit the curious, innocent boy at the center of the show. So the name didn't come from the animal, it came from a real person whose name traveled from a Navy ship to the heart of American television. Another fascinating detail was the famous $40,000 episode. In 1961, when the episode In the Soup aired, it made headlines for its unusually high cost. At that time, $40,000 was 3 times the price of an average American home. Most shows never came close to that kind of spending for a half-hour sitcom. What made this special was that the money wasn't spent on fancy sets or special effects, it was used to make the episode look and feel as realistic as possible. The production team invested heavily in creative camera angles, clever set design, and precise editing. The goal was to bring the story to life in a way that felt vivid and real. Some people thought it was a waste of money, but when the episode aired, the audience loved it. It became a turning point for TV storytelling, proving that even a simple family show could be made with cinematic care and artistry. Hugh Beaumont, who played Ward Cleaver, wasn't just acting like the perfect father, he truly lived those values. Before becoming an actor, Beaumont studied theology and became a licensed Methodist minister. Acting wasn't his first dream, it was a way to help pay for school. But once he started working in Hollywood, he found himself torn between preaching and performing. Even after Leave It to Beaver made him famous, Beaumont didn't abandon his faith. He often preached in small churches and lived a quiet, humble life outside of show business. His calm manner and moral strength on screen came from genuine belief and life experience. That authenticity made Ward Cleaver one of television's most respected father figures. He wasn't just a character, he was a reflection of the man who played him. Behind the cheerful tone of the show were also some sad and stressful moments for the cast. Acting in a hit series was exciting, but it also came with pressure, long hours, and strict expectations. Jerry Mathers, who was still a child, had to balance school with filming. The set became his second home, and sometimes he missed out on normal childhood experiences. Tony Dow faced similar challenges, feeling the stress of fame while trying to live like a regular teenager. Both boys later admitted that they loved working on the show but didn't always realize how famous they had become until it was over. The production itself was also stricter than fans might imagine. The show's creators, Joe Connolly and Bob Mosher, wanted every scene to reflect real family life in a clean, idealized way. They paid attention to every line, every look, and even the clothes the actors wore. June Cleaver, played by Barbara Billingsley, always appeared in pearls and heels, even while cleaning or cooking. This became one of the show's trademarks but also led to jokes later about how perfect the Cleavers seemed. Billingsley later explained that the pearls helped hide a small indentation on her neck from lighting shadows, and the heels kept her closer in height to her taller on-screen sons. What looked like a symbol of perfection actually started as practical choices on set. Off-screen, the cast got along well, though like any family, they had their differences. Jerry Mathers saw Hugh Beaumont as a real father figure, and Tony Dow often said that working with the cast taught him discipline and respect. However, the pressures of fame sometimes caused tension. Dow struggled later in life with depression and self-doubt, partly due to being typecast as the perfect older brother. He eventually became a director and artist, finding peace in creativity. What made Leave It to Beaver timeless was how it captured everyday life in a simple but powerful way. The show wasn't about big drama or wild plots, it was about family, lessons, and the small moments that define growing up. Every episode carried a moral, but it never felt forced. Parents were patient, kids made mistakes, and everyone learned something by the end. It reminded viewers that love and understanding mattered more than perfection. Even decades later, Leave It to Beaver continues to be remembered not just as a nostalgic piece of the 1950s but as a groundbreaking show that shaped how family life was portrayed on television. It proved that honesty, kindness, and real emotion could make a story timeless. Behind the smiles and laughter, the show was full of real effort, real faith, and real humanity, and that's what makes it unforgettable. Larry Mondello was one of the most memorable characters in Leave It to Beaver. He was the funny, round-faced friend who always seemed to drag Beaver into one bit of trouble after another. But then, without any warning, he disappeared from the show in 1960. There was no farewell scene, no explanation, Larry was simply gone. Fans were left wondering what happened to Beaver's best friend. Behind the scenes, the truth was less dramatic and more human. Rusty Stevens, the young actor who played Larry, had become incredibly popular, and that meant longer filming hours and more pressure. As a result, he had less time to live like a normal kid. Later in life, Stevens said he wanted to step away from acting so he could just go to school and have a regular childhood. But Barbara Billingsley, who played June Cleaver, once mentioned that the real reason might have been tension between the producers and Stevens' mother, who was heavily involved in his career. Other reports said the family moved away from California, making it impossible for Rusty to continue filming. Whatever the exact reason, the outcome was simple: Larry Mondello disappeared quietly, not because of drama, but because of real-life changes. He left behind the bright lights of Hollywood for the normal life of a schoolboy, a gentle reminder that sometimes, real life steps in even for television favorites. Jerry Weil, who played Judy Hensler, the girl everyone remembers as Beaver's nosy classmate, had her own painful experience behind the scenes. On the surface, Judy was cheerful and confident, always tattling on Beaver with a grin. But for Jerry, life on set wasn't easy. She was only 12, and as her body began to change, the studio wanted her to keep looking younger. To do this, the costume department began wrapping her chest tightly with tape and bandages before shooting. It was painful and embarrassing, and it took away the joy she once felt about acting. Weil later said that this experience deeply affected her self-esteem and made her lose interest in Hollywood altogether. After the series ended, she left acting for good and eventually became a real estate agent. She described the taping incident as the exact moment when acting stopped being fun. Her story shows the harsh reality that child actors often faced in the early days of television: pressure to look perfect, decisions made without their consent, and little understanding of the emotional harm that could be caused. Today, her experience is an important reminder of why protecting young performers is so vital. Even though the entertainment industry has come a long way, her story still serves as a warning that kindness and care must always come before image. June Cleaver, the heart of the Cleaver family, became a symbol of the perfect 1950s mother, always elegant in pearls and high heels. But few people know that those famous wardrobe choices weren't the creation of a stylist. They were actually Barbara Billingsley's own ideas, and they came from practical reasons rather than fashion. Billingsley had a small hollow in her neck that created dark shadows under studio lighting, so she started wearing a strand of pearls to cover it. The necklace became her trademark. Later, as her on-screen sons Wally and Beaver grew taller, she began wearing heels so she wouldn't look too short next to them. It wasn't about vanity, it was simply about balance on camera. She even joked that she was glad the studio didn't make her stand on a box just to stay taller. Billingsley also helped decide how June should dress overall. She preferred clothes that looked timeless, avoiding trendy styles that would quickly go out of date. When asked in later interviews why June always looked so polished, even while cooking or vacuuming, Billingsley laughed and said it just made sense for the character. Thanks to her attention to detail, June Cleaver became one of television's most iconic mothers: graceful, kind, and always composed. Her choices not only shaped how the character looked but also influenced how women and mothers were portrayed on TV for years to come. Most fans don't realize that Leave It to Beaver was almost cancelled before it became a classic. When the show first premiered on CBS in 1957, it didn't make much of an impression. The ratings were fine, but the network didn't see it as a strong hit. They thought the gentle, lesson-filled stories about suburban family life were too quiet compared to other shows. After the first season, CBS decided to cancel it. Normally, that would have been the end, but then something unexpected happened. ABC picked up the series in 1958. The new network believed in the show's charm and gave it another chance. That decision completely changed its future. Over the next 5 years, Leave It to Beaver grew into one of the most loved family comedies in America. The Cleavers became household names, and the show went on to run for 6 seasons. The switch between networks was very unusual at the time and showed that sometimes a simple act of faith from the right people can turn a struggling series into television history. Without that second chance, Leave It to Beaver might have disappeared after one short season, instead of becoming a timeless classic that people still talk about today. Behind the friendly faces and simple stories of the show, there were also real Hollywood connections that many fans never noticed. One of Beaver's school friends, Gilbert Bates, was played by a young actor named Stephen Talbot. What most viewers didn't know was that Stephen came from a family of actors. His father, Lyle Talbot, was a well-known actor who had worked in films and on television for decades. Lyle even appeared on Leave It to Beaver himself, but not as Gilbert's father. Instead, he played Mr. Dennison, the father of Beaver's girlfriend, Linda. It was a funny coincidence that both father and son were on the same show, sometimes on the same lot, yet they never appeared in the same scene together. Behind the scenes, though, it must have been special for Lyle to watch his young son take his first steps into the acting world he already knew so well. Stephen later said that his father quietly guided him, offering advice and encouragement but never pushing too hard. Few fans knew about their family connection, but it added a hidden warmth to the show's world. In a way, Leave It to Beaver wasn't just a story about family, it was built by real families too. The Talbots' connection gave the show another layer of authenticity and reminded everyone that sometimes the best stories come from real life. From missing friends to hidden pain, from quiet wardrobe secrets to behind-the-scenes rescues, the story of Leave It to Beaver is filled with real emotions and personal stories that shaped its legacy. What we saw on screen was a perfect family living in an ideal world, but behind the camera were kids growing up, parents balancing faith and fame, and creators fighting for a show they believed in. Each of these details shows that Leave It to Beaver was much more than just an old sitcom. It was a reflection of real people, their struggles, and their small victories. That honesty, hidden behind the polished surface, is what made the show timeless. Ken Osmond became famous for playing Eddie Haskell in Leave It to Beaver, the kid everyone loved to hate. Eddie was polite to parents but sneaky when their backs were turned, always stirring up trouble with his smirk and slicked hair. The character became so iconic that it followed Osmond for years after the show ended. Casting directors couldn't see past the role, and Osmond himself once said that playing Eddie was like a death sentence for his acting career because he could never escape that image. But instead of giving up, he surprised everyone. In 1970, Osmond quit acting, grew a mustache, and joined the Los Angeles Police Department. The mischievous boy from TV became a real-life hero, putting on a uniform for a different kind of role. During his time as a police officer, he was shot 3 times while chasing a suspect, but his bulletproof vest saved his life. It was a dramatic moment that could have come straight from a Hollywood script. In a way, Eddie Haskell grew up, turning from a sneaky teenager into a man who truly served and protected. For fans, discovering that the actor behind television's troublemaker became a real hero gave both Eddie and Osmond a new legacy. In 1958, Leave It to Beaver aired an episode called Beaver and Chewie, which quietly broke barriers in television. It introduced cultural diversity at a time when Hispanic characters were almost never seen on screen. The episode followed Beaver Cleaver as he befriended Chewie Varela, a new student who spoke only Spanish. Chewie's arrival showed how friendship could cross language barriers. Even though the two boys couldn't communicate easily, Beaver helped Chewie fit in and even taught him a few English words. This episode wasn't just about school, it was about understanding and empathy. It showed that kindness could connect people even when they didn't share the same language. In the 1950s, that was groundbreaking. The story gave audiences a gentle reminder that humanity and compassion don't need translation. It was a small but meaningful step toward more inclusive television, proving that shows about family and childhood could also teach valuable lessons about acceptance and cultural understanding. Some characters disappear when their shows end, but June Cleaver never really did. Barbara Billingsley, who played her, loved the role too much to let it go. Even after Leave It to Beaver ended, she continued to bring June back in guest appearances on shows like The Love Boat, Elvira's Movie Macabre, the new Leave It to Beaver, and Hi Honey, I'm Home. Each appearance felt like seeing an old friend again. Billingsley didn't just play June, she preserved her. June Cleaver symbolized warmth, patience, and grace, the kind of mother figure that never went out of style. Even as television became louder and more sarcastic, June's gentle charm still stood out. Billingsley's devotion to the character turned her into a lasting icon. Through reruns and parodies, June remained part of popular culture, reminding audiences that kindness and respect never age. Her soft-spoken wisdom became timeless, proving that genuine goodness can outlast trends. In the episode Beaver and Andy, the show took a brave step by touching on a serious issue, alcoholism. Beaver notices that the family's new painter, Andy, is often tired, unsteady, and always thirsty. The show never says he's drunk outright, but adults watching knew what was being implied. When Beaver tells his parents what he saw, they explain that some people can't handle alcohol and that it's a serious problem. It was a bold topic for a 1960s family show, but Leave It to Beaver handled it with care. Instead of being dark or frightening, it was told through Beaver's innocent curiosity. This made the lesson easier for children to understand. The show managed to introduce a grown-up subject without losing its wholesome tone. It encouraged viewers to see people with compassion rather than judgment. Beaver and Andy proved that even light-hearted family shows could teach real-life lessons and address difficult topics with sensitivity. Even in a show as wholesome as Leave It to Beaver, real-world problems sometimes appeared. In one episode, Beaver's friend Chopper has 2 birthday parties because his parents are divorced. For a 1960s sitcom, that was unusual. Divorce was rarely mentioned on TV, especially in shows meant for families. But the writers handled it gently. Beaver reacts with childish curiosity and even jokes that maybe his parents should separate so he can have 2 parties too. The humor made the subject approachable. June Cleaver later explains to Beaver and Chopper that every family is different, and what matters most is love and care, not structure. The story wasn't about divorce itself but about understanding and acceptance. It quietly told children that families come in all shapes and sizes and that's okay. This episode showed how the show could mix humor and heart to handle sensitive subjects. Without preaching, it encouraged kindness and empathy, a message that still feels relevant today. When Leave It to Beaver ended in 1963, it didn't go out suddenly or because of cancellation. The creators wanted to give the show a proper farewell. The final episode, Family Scrapbook, aired on June 20, 1963, and became one of the first television finales to truly wrap up a story. Jerry Mathers, who played Beaver, wanted to focus on school and live a normal life again, and that helped inspire the decision to end things gracefully. The television world was also changing, color broadcasting was becoming standard, and the producers didn't want to risk lowering the show's quality by rushing to keep up. So, they decided to close the Cleaver family's story in a meaningful way. In the finale, Wally prepares for college, and Beaver heads to high school, showing how the kids had grown up. It was a simple but touching conclusion. Instead of fading away or losing direction, the show chose dignity and heart. Leave It to Beaver proved that a series could end thoughtfully, giving closure to both characters and viewers. That decision made its ending one of the most respected in TV history and left the Cleaver family's story with a sense of completeness and peace. Jerry Mathers, who played Beaver, almost missed the role that made him famous because of a funny twist. On the day of his audition, he showed up wearing his Cub Scout uniform. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, he just didn't want to be late for his scout meeting afterward. Casting directors were used to young actors arriving in neat clothes, perfectly rehearsed and eager to please. But Mathers was honest and straightforward, more focused on real life than fame. When they asked if he wanted the role, he said he'd rather not miss his meeting. That honesty and innocence impressed them so much that they knew he was perfect for Beaver. His natural attitude captured exactly what the show needed, a believable, down-to-earth boy who made mistakes, learned lessons, and loved his family. That simple audition became a classic story about how being genuine sometimes matters more than being polished. Mathers didn't pretend or overact, he just was himself, and that made him unforgettable. From Ken Osmond's transformation into a real-life hero, to small but powerful lessons about friendship, empathy, and change, Leave It to Beaver did more than entertain. It taught generations of viewers how to understand others, face real problems, and value family. The show's gentle storytelling and sincere characters made it timeless. Whether it was a child learning about life, a mother teaching kindness, or a troublemaker finding redemption, every story added something meaningful. Even decades later, the lessons from Mayfield still matter, reminding us that growing up isn't just about age, but about learning, caring, and becoming a better person along the way. When Jerry Mathers went to audition for Leave It to Beaver, he showed up in his Cub Scout uniform, ready to leave for a meeting right after. Most casting directors would have thought that was unprofessional, but Bob Mosher, one of the show's creators, saw something special. He didn't scold Jerry or tell him to change. Instead, he noticed that this little boy cared more about his scouts than about being on TV. That honesty and innocence made him perfect for the role. Mosher encouraged Jerry to go to his meeting and told him not to worry about missing anything important. That small act of sincerity became one of the most important decisions in Jerry's life. His natural charm, boyish curiosity, and genuine personality were exactly what the producers were looking for. They didn't need a polished performer, they needed a real kid who reminded viewers of their own children. In that moment, Jerry's simple choice to be himself won them over. The boy in the uniform became Beaver Cleaver, one of television's most beloved characters. It proved that authenticity can shine brighter than any rehearsed line, and sometimes, being true to yourself is what truly sets you apart. When Leave It to Beaver first aired, it wasn't an instant hit. In fact, it didn't even make the Nielsen Top 30 ratings. By television standards, that might have looked like a flop. But over time, something interesting happened. The show slowly grew on audiences. Families discovered it in reruns, and generation after generation fell in love with the Cleavers. Unlike other shows that relied on flashy drama or shocking moments, Leave It to Beaver focused on simple, relatable stories, childhood mistakes, family lessons, and the humor of everyday life. Kids related to Beaver and Wally as they stumbled through growing up, while parents admired the patience and wisdom of June and Ward Cleaver. The stories were gentle but meaningful, showing love, honesty, and understanding in every episode. Those little lessons stuck with people, and the show's charm never faded. Through reruns, cable, and now streaming, new audiences continue to find joy in Mayfield's simple streets. What began as a modest black and white sitcom became one of the most cherished family shows in history. Its success wasn't about ratings, it was about heart. Leave It to Beaver proved that a true classic doesn't need instant fame. Its legacy lies in how it continues to connect with people decades later, reminding us that sincerity and kindness never go out of style. Eddie Haskell was never supposed to become a cultural icon, yet he did. At first, he was just another supporting character, the polite, smooth-talking friend who always acted angelic in front of parents but turned sneaky when they weren't around. Ken Osmond played him with such skill that Eddie quickly stood out. Viewers everywhere recognized the type, the kid who seemed nice when adults were watching but caused trouble behind the scenes. Over time, Eddie's name became part of everyday language. People began calling anyone two-faced or overly flattering an Eddie Haskell. The character became a symbol of fake charm, the kind of person who smiles sweetly to authority while secretly scheming. That transformation from sitcom sidekick to cultural reference is rare. It showed how deeply television characters can influence language and perception. Even people who never saw the original show understand the meaning of the term Eddie Haskell. His legacy lives on in pop culture, a reminder that sometimes, a well-written role can become much bigger than the screen. Eddie Haskell started as a fictional troublemaker but ended up shaping how people describe real human behavior, a lasting example of how one clever character can leave a mark on generations. Behind the Cleavers' picture-perfect family, there's an unexpected Hollywood connection that even loyal fans might not know. Barbara Billingsley, who played the loving mother June Cleaver, was once related by marriage to the family behind another famous story, A Christmas Story. Her first husband, Glenn Billingsley, was a cousin of Gail Billingsley, the mother of actor Peter Billingsley, the same Peter who played Ralphie Parker, the boy who dreamed of getting a Red Ryder BB gun for Christmas. That means, in a quirky Hollywood way, June Cleaver could have been seen as a distant cousin-in-law to Ralphie Parker. It's one of those fun facts that reveal how close-knit Hollywood has always been. In the 1950s and 60s, actors, directors, and families often crossed paths in surprising ways, building an invisible web of connections between film and television. This link between the Cleavers and the Parkers makes their worlds feel oddly united, two beloved families from two different eras of American pop culture tied together by chance. It adds another layer of charm to the legacy of Leave It to Beaver, showing that the spirit of wholesome storytelling ran deeper than anyone realized. The connection is more than trivia, it's a symbol of how timeless values like love, family, and laughter connect generations of entertainment history. Thinking about all these behind-the-scenes moments reveals how much depth Leave It to Beaver really had. Jerry Mather's simple honesty at his auditions set the tone for a show built on realness and sincerity. The fact that the series started as a ratings underdog and grew into a television legend proves that authenticity lasts longer than hype. Eddie Haskell's transformation from mischievous teen to cultural term shows the power of storytelling to shape language and how people think. And Barbara Billingsley's quiet link to another American classic reminds us that Hollywood, for all its glamour, is also a small, interconnected family. Together, these stories show why Leave It to Beaver remains unforgettable. It wasn't about fame, drama, or special effects, it was about truth, kindness, and the everyday beauty of growing up. Even today, decades after it first aired, the show's lessons still resonate. It reminds viewers that being honest matters, that family is built on understanding, and that even the simplest stories can leave the deepest marks. Whether it's a boy running off to his scout meeting, a friend learning a lesson about honesty, or a mom teaching patience with a gentle smile, every moment on Leave It to Beaver carries a piece of real life. That's why it continues to captivate hearts across generations. So now that you know the stories behind the scenes, which one surprises you the most? Do you think the show would have had the same charm if fans had known all of this back then? And if it aired today, would audiences still fall in love with its warmth, simplicity, and heart? Maybe the real magic of Leave It to Beaver is that even in a changing world, it still feels like home, a place where lessons are gentle, laughter is pure, and love is never out of date.